Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Beacon Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Larry Cohen.
Here.
Betsy Dennis. Here. Jennifer Edge. Here. Christine Galvo. Excused. Frank Garna.
Here.
Georgia Patchen. Here. Mary Beth Stevens. Here. Bill Zav.
Here.
Melissa Thompson. Here. Mr. Hilbert, will you review the fire exits?
Directly behind the audience, to the left and right are our fire exits.
Could we please stand for a moment of silence for Regina Helen Jean MacArthur, a retired teacher aide in the Beacon City School District. Thank you. Mr. Hilbert, would you like to introduce our workshop?
I'm very pleased this evening to introduce Dr. John Sieverding. So great to have you back,
Thank you.
Dr. Sieverding. And this evening, Dr. Sieverding is going to introduce the valedictorian and salutatorian of the class of 2013.
Thank you. These opportunities are just really great because you have a chance to meet students at another level. You know, we have two outstanding young men, and I'd like to call them up at this time and just talk a little bit about them. Our valedictorian, John Cruz. John, if you would come up, please. And our salutatorian, James McQuaid. James? Gentlemen, congratulations. Why don't you stand over there? As a district, you have made us very proud. And just a little bit of an ad lib, so to speak. Mr. Hilberg was with me when we went down to Southern Westchester to this event where all the valedictorians and salutatorians were honored at the DoubleTree in the Tarrytown Hilton. Phenomenal guest speaker. But we had a chance to talk to John and James just about other things other than school. And that's just a nice part as well.
And I have to say they have quite good appetites. But I can sympathize with the parents.
John is on his way to Harvard University, and he'll be meeting some of our other students over the last couple of years who were there. And James is going to be going to Mount St. Mary's, both fine institutions. And, you know, we wish you the very best, and I appreciate all that you've done for Beacon City School District by representing yourself as you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we were a couple of months ago looking at this meeting, we had something else planned for tonight's presentation, and that's going to be the energy performance contract presentation, and that's now planned to July 15th. And you will have all that report information in your next packet in preparation for that. But that worked out quite well, I think, for the board. I'm not so sure for Dr. Walkley. So I went into Barbara and said, you know, we didn't plan an end of the year wrap up. I know you've had, between your golfing and the happy hours and all, it's hard to pin you down. But I know you've been doing a few things this year, and we wanted to take advantage of the time now to allow you to kind of give us a year-end wrap-up, if you would.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight I have a little story to tell because this is about what we did. This is about what the district did. And as you know, we've been talking all year about what an extraordinary year this is, because there's been an awful lot that we had to learn this year and an awful lot that we had to do this year. And so my story is just about that. In terms of accomplishments, we didn't do everything that we set out to do, but we did do a lot. And I think that really speaks to what's been going on here in Beacon that I'll talk about in just a minute. But I want to start because we're in the season of quizzes, and I would like to start with a quiz. If this year were a book, it would be called, and I have some choices here: A Most Unusual Year, A, or 1, 2, The Game Changer, 3, We're Off to See the Wizard, or 4, Let Me Off This Merry-Go-Round. Which one do you think it is?
2. 4.
Yes. Whatever you choose, you have the right answer. Because it is, as I said, it is a most unusual year. It is a game changer. And, you know, we've learned a lot this year. And we're so much smarter. And even recently, we've learned a lot. And it's been a real ride that we've been on. But what I do want to say is that there's a lot of people that were involved in making us get to this point where we are. And I can't go or say anything without thanking a few people. Of course, the Board of Education, Mr. Hilberg, our clerical, custodial, and security staff had a lot to do with where we are, because they are the people that hold down the fort. They're the people that make our building safe and allow us to become involved in what it is that we do every day and feel secure in doing that. Let's see, there's Mr. Romanino over there. I see him as the president of our BEAA and all of the members and their leadership. We certainly couldn't be where we are without them. And then, of course, the BTA members, all of our teachers, and educational staff, and related services staff, and our president, Mrs. Atwell, is here this evening. Mr. Fashan and his technical staff have had a big role to play, and you'll see that with some of the technology pieces that we've been working on. Mrs. Stavali and Mrs. Dick are our data people, and they go into the computer and they help make it do what it is that we have to make it do. And they've worked really hard this year, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention them. And then, of course, there's a staff that I work with on a day-to-day basis, and that's Mrs. Simone. Oh, Kelly's here this evening, Mrs. Pollage, Mrs. Morgan, and recently Mrs. Fraser Woods. And these are some of the people, because there's more. But I did want to recognize the efforts, because this is what I truly believe. I love this quote by Henry Ford: "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success." And this year, as we have moved forward with the Regents Reform Agenda, as I said earlier, we've learned a lot, and we've had to work together. And we still have to work together, because there's still bumps in the road. But I think if you go down the road not very far and you begin to look in other districts and how they've implemented their APPR or some of the other Regents Reform Agenda, I know that you can be really proud of Beacon and the work that has been done here this year. And it didn't come without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And when I say that we were busy this year, everybody's busy. But I have to say that the teachers and the administrators have put in the time. They've worked hard, and they're still working hard. So I thank them for everything that they have done this year. this is how we started. We started with submitting an APPR on time, and that was in July of this year. And then the administrative team were the first up to get to work together and get some professional development, and that was back in July. And during those days that we worked together, one of the things that we worked on was understanding the APPR plan. Now, I didn't put words in here. I have another model that you can look at someday. It has the words. But the most important thing to understand is that the demands for the teachers, classroom observations, artifacts, etc., are exactly the same, are mirrored by what the principals have to do for their evaluation as well. And so this turned out to be kind of the picture of what this system, this evaluation system, looks like. So we talked about that. We also talked about an activity. We did an activity, we called it the conceptual calendar, because that was an activity to show them how easy it would be to fit in everything, right? You remember doing that. And I think at the end of that, they kind of knew. I think this picture is a great picture of what was happening this year, because the calendar's chasing all of us with the time. We also jumped in a little bit to talk about these 4 levels, the Heidi rating, the ineffective, developing, effective, and highly rating. And we used an analogy of spinning plates and how well somebody can spin a plate. And then the administrators thought of their own analogies to go with this. But it was a pretty good model to begin to understand, and then what's the difference between each of these 4 levels. August 29th and 30th were 2 staff development days in the district for the administrators and the teachers. And the name of it was called All Learning All the Time. And as a matter of fact, I said at that time, we all have to be learning all the time this year. And I think that that certainly became true as we went forward. You may not recognize this. It's a beautiful venue, and it's right outside the door. We started with well, John is now renting out the hallway there for weddings, I guess, but we started with having all the teachers come together and work together for 2 days out in the hallway because the gym floor had just been done and we didn't want to ruin the beautiful shine down there. As we started, we talked about saying goodbye to the old way of working and the old way of doing things and shifting our paradigms. And I think that that is something that we're still working at. I don't think I know we are. Because as I think I've shared with the board before, a teacher this year said to me, it's like we're all new teachers all over again. And we're relearning everything. And that's a very powerful statement, because I truly believe that's what it is that we're doing. And so this slide was used, we're going where no educator has gone before, because everything is new. Everything, and it is a game changer. In 2 days, 2 long days, probably horrible days sitting on those chairs, we developed an understanding, and just a beginning understanding about some things with the Regents' reform agenda, which included the New York State teaching standards and all of the pieces of the APPR. And what could be hard about that? A point system, taking notes, teacher artifacts, what could be hard? We're still clarifying this. It's a very complex system that the state has put together, and it has taken a lot for us to come together and come to some understanding. And we're still needing to do more understanding. At that time, we talked about 2 goals, because that was based on looking at some of the data that we had in the district. And those 2 goals focused around literacy and rigor. And anything that we could do with reading, writing, listening, speaking, computation, and holding higher expectations for our students. That's where we started, and that's what we started thinking about on those 2 days. In addition to that, we had a quick review of the 6 instructional shifts in ELA and math, because those are the 2 focuses from the state. We also talked about 3 different types of vocabulary, and one of the ways to really increase our rigor was to just begin to increase the rigor in the vocabulary that we were and are using in classrooms. We had another conference day in October, and here we were taking our first steps. We had learned about the Regents Reform Agenda. Now we were ready to begin to step out. In that particular session, talked about the APPR as a monster. And it's a really big monster, and you can see it's eating the cars. But that what we needed to do was really knock out the APPR and demystify some of the things about the APPR. So again, coming back to literacy, we talked about some first bites that we could take of implementing that literacy, and just some easy things like a word for a day, or the Regents Reform Agenda. Try out a New York State unit of study that's up on Engage NY, finding connected websites, etc. We also talked, I talked at that time about a literacy leadership team that was going to come together and do some work in the district about literacy. And I'll talk about where that idea went. We also talked about the ever-increasing accountability. And again, looking at some information from across the state, as well as how the state was going to hold us accountable in a new and different way. And those new and different ways had to do exactly with our goals, and you can see one of them right there, which is rigor. Because from the state's point of view, proficiency in ELA and math now is at 75 or above for ELA and 80% or higher for math. Even though students are passing and getting credit for a course to count towards our accountability, the bar has been raised quite a bit. We also, in that session, talked about the pieces of a student learning objective, which is a new way to hold students accountable, but then that also relates to holding teachers accountable and administrators accountable, because we have this scoring system, and part of the scores are based on how well our students do on state assessments. We had another conference day. A lot of conference days. And we talked more about accountability, because accountability is the biggest driver of this system. And I have to say that there is no one's feet that's being held. There's no one whose feet aren't being held in the fire. Everybody. So again, we looked at some of our data, some new data at that point in time. I had some new data to share, which we did, and we also looked at the new accountability continuum and talked about our high school and middle school as being a focus school, and that we're a focus district, and some of what that meant to us. Talking about the targets, the AYP are the targets of the state, the AMO are the targets that the state set for us, and how we reach those targets, and what we're looking at, what the state is looking at for those targets. Now that was just the start, because that's what we needed to know. That was just our background information. Here are some of the things that we did based upon that information. Teachers and administrators in every building wrote student learning objectives. Not every teacher wrote one, but people in every building wrote one. We were trained, and we implemented a new accountability system of attendance. And you saw some of that 15-minute period. And that was enough for the year. Just getting that up and running, that was enough, because it still makes us crazy. We had new smart boards that were installed in the schools, and a cadre was trained and then turnkey trained their colleagues on how to use the smart boards. We purchased, trained, and implemented a foundations program at K2, which is a reading program. And I was in one of the elementary schools the other day, and it was a second grade class. And I was going down the hall, and the teacher said, "Oh, that's Dr. Walkley there." And the kids all stopped, and they said, "Thank you, Dr. Walkley." And I said, "For what?" And they said, "For foundations." And they told me the story that every time the teacher pulls it out, she says, "Thank you, Dr. Walkley." I said, "Well, it wasn't me." It wasn't me, but it was great. It was really great. We purchased, trained, and implemented the following programs. Ames Web in 3 elementary schools and the middle school. One of our elementary schools was already using Ames Web, which is a progress monitoring tool, but also gives us a lot of information about how well students are doing during the year, and then you can also correlate that with a prediction about how well they'll do on state assessments. The Test Wizard we bought at the middle and high school because we had to create some new tests, and this was an online program to help do it. Castle Learning is not fully implemented yet, but we have a pilot going primarily at the middle school, and this will be spreading across the district as well as with parents. And at the 2 recent parent evenings, we talked about Castle Learning. We have an integrated social studies and ELA web-based curriculum that's not implemented, but we learned about it this year at the middle school and elementary school, and will be a resource for next year. And we also have purchased and started very small with reading teachers, a few teachers, with a program called Read Naturally, which is a program for reading fluency that helps students gain information, gain understanding from text. We purchased textbooks. We are still in the process of purchasing textbooks, and we purchased calculators that were needed for the high school. Now, we implemented the APPR. Now, here's the story. The APPR is, well, it is kind of like a monster, really. It's as I keep saying, it's very complex. And we had people this year, administrators, all the administrators who made an honest effort. But we got in a little fix because Dr. Sieverding there had an injury, and we got a little fix because he was out for so long, and we had some changes in our administrative staff. And so we decided, so that we could hold to certain deadlines, to use an outside consultant. And what I'm going to tell you is that in retrospect, it was a decision that seemed like a good decision at the time, but in retrospect, I should have gone back to Mr. Covey. Stephen Covey tells us that you can't have business until you have a relationship. And so when you bring in an outside consultant, guess what? No relationship. So right now, and I have great faith, we're working that out, and I have great faith because I have faith in the work that the teachers have done this year, that we'll be able to work that out and move forward. We've restructured central office, and we hired a full-time personnel assistant. Thank you. I know Callie thanks you. We all thank you. She's wonderful. All right, we formed this literacy leadership group that identified specific literacy strategies for each grade level that all teachers need to use. They did some search of the research that is out there. In addition, we wrote and received board approval, I think it was last time we met, on the K-5 RTI plan, and have specific recommendations for the middle school and high school, and we compiled and conducted a state review of the high school. And again, Dr. Sieverding can tell you how much fun that was a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago. From the work that the literacy group did, the literacy leadership group did, we hired some outside experts who have created what will be an online literacy resource. And it's a companion piece because every strategy that they identified is the task analysis for that. How you do that is in this online resource, and all the teachers will have that starting this summer. Hopefully, we'll do some work with it this summer, and then they will have that next year and into the future. We created and administered common pre, mid-year, and post-assessments. And we jumped into the New York State Common Core Learning Standard modules in the grade levels where we could. And the reason I say that is because the state is still creating some of the modules and still putting them up on the web. In the process of aligning content coordinators to better fit, we are in the process of aligning content coordinators to better fit into the demands of the Regents Reform agenda. In the process of working with a committee to prepare, we are in the process of working with a committee to prepare for the APPR for next school year. We wrote a district comprehensive educational plan for the district and 2 comprehensive school educational plans called SEPs for the middle school and high school. We wrote and received a school improvement grant for the middle school and the district. We ordered supplemental books for the middle school. We trained a cadre in the middle school on test design because Test Wizard isn't enough. The state expects our tests to be reliable and valid, and that's a whole new process, whole new way of thinking. We provided training for the high school and middle school on scheduling teams, and they are currently putting together the master schedule. We held administrative calibration training sessions for the APPR in the summer and throughout the year, and generally we met about twice a month with the administrators almost every month. We conducted 2 evening parent academies. We hired and oriented new substitute teachers in a new way, and we provided administrative observation, shadowing, and training. And don't worry, there's more to come, because our bucket runneth over. But those are some of the major tasks that we did this year. And again, they're up there because of the work of the people that I work with, not so much the work that I did. So I want to thank them again, and I'll just open if you have any questions.
Well, first I'd like to thank Dr. Walkley for your extraordinary efforts, work ethic, dedication. I know we've taken on Beacon as our own, but you really proved that time and time again with your the results you're getting and the caring on every issue. So thanks for your great work. I know we have about a month left, and we're going to be racing to the finish line to get it all done. It's been my privilege to work too.
Thank you.
Just quickly, I would also like to thank you, Dr. Walkley, for always providing your reports with that smile you have right there. Many times you've given us difficult to understand information, very possibly difficult to give information, and you've always given it to us in a way that we could understand and appreciate the effort that you've put forth to bring it to us in a way that we can understand what we need to do as a board to give you the tools, to give to the teachers, to give to our children, to make the process work. So thank you for all of your hard work for our community.
Thank you.
I think we should give Dr. Waterby a round of applause.
That's it. May I have a motion for executive session?
Motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual.
Second. Comments or questions?